Hello spooky people, and welcome to In the Maw of Thanatos, where I talk about all types of horror, both old and new, because that's what I do! This time we're hopping over to the Emerald Isle for some creepy kid action and an ever-expanding sinkhole in... The Hole in the Ground. Almost immediately you know what type of film this is going to be, because this is an A24 film. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but we'll get to that in time. We start at Seaside Fun Fair, where Sarah is watching her son Chris, looking at himself in a funhouse mirror. Foreshadowing. To say that they're at a fair, Sarah is pretty somber. We'll find out why later. Kinda. Now that we've set the tone, we get some beautiful introduction credits. I love visuals like this. I don't know why, but it always seems very lustrous and evocative to me. In the car ride home, we learn a little bit about Chris and his mother, Sarah, and their relationship, which seems a pretty chilled and relaxed one.
Stuart Mackin says our Jeep looks like something a Fiat Fall would drive. He's an ass face.
Hey.
Can I say anus face?
No.
But it's a science word.
And then...
Mom, look out!
This is Noreen Brady, also known as Walkie Talkie. After almost being run over, she seems very nonplussed about it, which goes to show how broken she is. Sarah picks up the mirror that was knocked off her car and gets the hell out of Dodge. So Sarah's bought a house in the middle of nowhere and is in the process of redecorating. It's here where we get more expansion on Chris and Sarah's relationship, their in-jokes, things like that.
Put some more cheese on it.
I don't like that dust cheese.
3.
2.
1.
After a bit of conversation about what makes a girl spider,
How do you know it's a girl?
8 legs and no willy, see?
we get a little backstory or a little bit more of the subtext of the film when Chris argues with his mother about his father not coming with them when they moved house. As their argument peaks, Chris runs off into the woods that are located near the house. Sarah gives chase and finds a massive sinkhole in the forest. The titular hole in the ground. No, we already did that. Chris appears and asks,
What is that?
"It's a big fuck-off hole in the ground that grows every time you're naughty. I would be a terrible father." After some more usual parenting stuff and day-to-day activities, Sarah picks her son up from school and advises him to take part in the upcoming talent show in order to make some new friends because he's finding it difficult. That night, Sarah attends a dinner party with some new friends of her own, and we find out just exactly why Walkie Talkie is so messed up.
Her son James was in my class, used to sit across from me in school. Anyway, when we were around 8, Noreen, she came bursting into the classroom. Out of control. She went away to have her head fixed. And then a few months later...
She got out, got a car, and mowed the kid down.
After the party, Sarah wakes up to find that the door is open.
And the front door is open again!
And that Chris is gone. Panicking, she runs into the woods thinking that's where he's gone. The film finally introduces some real horror with a creepy scene as Sarah searches the woods for Chris. She freaks out, as anyone in their right mind would, when spooky things start happening as she's searching the woods. So she runs home and calls the police. As she's on the phone, Chris appears behind her, like a creepy little fucker, and scares the bejesus out of her. From here on in, Sarah starts to notice weird things about her son. Something isn't quite right. She's not sure what, but Sarah knows that he's different somehow. He doesn't play the same games or join in on their in-jokes. And worst of all, he's now friends with...
Stuart Mackin. He's an ass face.
When she starts to question things, her friends see it as more of a coincidence, especially after the things that she's learnt about Walkie Talkie, compounded with the move to a new home. And following another run-in with Walkie Talkie,
It's not your boy.
things begin to escalate. Fast. The Hole in the Ground was released in 2019 and distributed by A24 and Vertigo Films. A24 probably seems like a familiar name to most of you, but we'll get to them in a bit. I promise. The film was written by Stephen Shields and Lee Cronin. The writing is well crafted and it lifts a lot of inspiration from Irish folklore for the main story. Whilst it might be a bit tropey in places, it takes its time revealing what is really going on, giving itself time to breathe and allowing us to get to know the characters. Cronin also directed Minutes Past Midnight, which sounds cool. Might end up being a future review. Who knows? I certainly don't. But he does have an exciting future release coming up as director of the new Evil Dead film, Evil Dead Rise, which is just fucking fantastic.
Groovy.
I cannot wait to see. Just a shame that it's not going to be in cinemas. This was his debut feature film, and I think he did a great job. And there's that word again. The film grossed $3.4 million, which I suppose is respectable for a film of this type. Although I couldn't find its budget, which may well have been $3.3 million. I don't know. Shauna Kerslake, I think that's how you pronounce it, plays Sarah, and whilst her filmography doesn't feature much in the way of horror films, she plays the character with all the subtlety and nuance that the film deserves. She is perfect in the role. James Quinn Markey is Chris, and just like Kerslake, he is excellently cast, pulling off his character's innocence in the beginning, right through to the creepy bits that come later with seeming ease. On that, I get asked why I don't want kids, and there are moments in this film that perfectly exemplify why.
Mommy, where are you?
Creepy fucker. Anyway, the film is subtle and takes its time building up to the horror. It earns it. Whilst the movie isn't especially scary, it still has some pretty effective horror moments. By no means is this a jump scare film. It's all about atmosphere and character. Okay, let's address the elephant in the room. Or rather, the giant sinkhole. A24 and elevated horror. I'll preface the little rant that I'm about to go on by saying that yes, there are different types of horror and different genres. And that's the wonderful thing about the genre as a whole. The vast variety of different styles and viewpoints and themes. My problem with this particular subgenre, if you can call it that, is the snobbery. With that said, let's get into it. So, elevated horror is what people usually call the more thinky pieces within the genre, and all elevated horror has certain commonalities. Subtext, sometimes a plot that isn't fully explained or fleshed out in order to make the movie feel bigger than the runtime. They're a slow burn and pretty much always melancholic. That isn't to say that I don't like all of those elements in a movie, it's more how they are viewed by people as making them more acceptable movies to like, and everything else is just shite. I hate the term elevated horror in general because it does a disservice to everything that doesn't fall under that umbrella. It cheapens the lives and the work of so many people, not to mention the taste and the passion of fans of the genre as a whole, and all because there are those people who think that the genre is trash and are too ashamed to admit that they enjoyed, or even made in some instances, a horror film. They probably would have been called art house at one point, but I guess that doesn't have the same mass market appeal as making people feel clever for grasping a thinly veiled metaphor or subtext. On the topic of subtext, it's nothing new, and the slow burn certainly isn't either. It was fairly common until the bombastism of the 80s, and things went team-killing franchise crazy. The problem with subtext, good subtext, is that it's difficult to achieve, at least well. And a lot of the films that get classed as elevated barely try to hide what points they want you to contemplate. As with most films these days, the subtext has become the text, and blatant at that. Which is fine, but don't pretend a film is smarter than it actually is, just to make yourself feel better for liking it. People consider the 1980s to be a bit of a dumb period in the industry as a whole, but I would argue that at least back then, they trusted the audience to understand the themes and the messages that were being portrayed. Now, however, the message is right there on the tin. Racism is bad, sexism is bad, etc. There is little nuance or craft. It's become a lecture disguised as entertainment. And that's kind of shallow. If you truly want to get people to think about what you're saying, then you don't just tell them. You give them a thread to pull, and they will inevitably begin to unravel things. If you trust in your audience, you allow them to digest and take from the film what they will, based on their own life experiences. And by doing so, you allow a forum for discourse to take place, instead of everyone being stuck in an echo chamber, agreeing completely about what a movie was about, with no room for differences of opinion. You end up restricting your own film, and you guarantee that it has a limited lifespan. Without discussion or the ability to interpret things differently, you don't learn anything new about the people around you, and by extension yourself. In terms of the hole in the ground, we are given a thread to pull. There is an actual subtext that isn't forced down your throat as forcefully as a lot of these films. The film is open for dissection. Personally, my reading is that it's about surviving abuse. And not only surviving, but healing and moving on.
Morning. I finished it.
It's also about the fear of what effect it has had on the next generation who witnessed it. Maybe not actively, but they will have seen the behaviours associated with the abuse. And as it was a parent in this case, they may be prone to mirror them.
Dad would kill it for me.
I'm not sad.
It's about the terror of tainting innocence so that it becomes the thing that you were trying to save it from. That it is too late and that they are becoming and taking the place of the abuser.
Tell me the truth.
I am!
Stop lying to me.
I'm not lying!
I may be wrong, and if you disagree with me, that's fine. Just write in the comments what your takeaway was. Being wrong or having different opinions is totally fine. We don't grow as people unless we can learn from one another's thoughts and experiences. That's how life works. I think it's time to wrap this up. Did I like the hole in the ground? I really did. Would I recommend it? Most definitely. I say give it a watch and then come back and write your thoughts in the comments down below. I'd say it's one of the better examples of elevated horror that there is out there. Oh, one last thing. I highly suggest listening to the music in the end credits. It's a cover of the Clancy Brothers' Wheeler Warley, and I butchered that, as always, by Lisa Hannigan. And it's sinister as fuck. The song itself goes all the way back to around the 1840s, when there were reports of women committing infanticide when they were unable to feed their babies during the famine era. The song later, bizarrely, became a street or schoolyard ballad. As you can probably imagine, the lyrics are pretty dark. And ending it on that chipper note, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, put your thoughts in the comments, remember to stay safe, stay weird, and most importantly, stay spooky. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.
And the branch on the tree. And the tree in the hole. And the hole in the bog. And the bog down in the valley.
What's the emergency?
It's my son.
You're gonna have to stay calm and tell me where you live if you want me to help you.
Sergeant Jefferson, 42nd Special Mobile Artillery.
Bearing Mark 220.
Bearing 220.
Range Mark 134 miles.
Range 134 miles.